Our number one marketing channel by far is word of mouth, right? It's not the cool Naomi Osaka campaign. It's not the billboards you see. It's not the digital advertising we do. It's not the app.
Named most creative people in business by Fast Company, Forbes CMO next, Fortune's 40 under 40, Forbes 30 under 30, awarded best hair among the three founders. We'll dig into that one. Co-founder and chief brand officer at Sweetgreen and leader of all things brand marketing at Sweetgreen, and also the top 30 hottest restaurant brand winner 2023, Nathaniel. How you doing, man?
Good, Nabil. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. I lost most of my energy reading your intro, so it's downhill from here. It's all downhill from here. Which of those are you the most proud of besides the hair?
I guess I'm just most proud of that I have two great business partners that we started this company with, and we just celebrated our sweet 16 birthday last week. So yeah. That's probably what I'm most proud of.
That's amazing. Also, we do lunch, a little bit on the nose.
Green Goddess.
I got Green Goddess. Green Goddess. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I've been eating healthier, and my go-to place has been. Yeah, I was terrible. Then I started eating healthier 3 months ago, and it's a lot of Sweetgreen and a lot of Inde. Have you tried Inde on the East Coast yet?
I love Inde, yeah. Great concept.
That's awesome. So they are one of our earliest friends and customers. All right, so we jump on call with the incredible humans who have built this industry. And this one is a special episode of people who have built this incredible brands out there. I just got to say one thing. I'll fanboy a little bit and then we'll move on to the questions. But I was the CMO at Bear Burger. I don't know if you've ever been on the East Coast.
Of course.
And it was annoying. It was almost like people said, we'll take a shot every time Nabil mentioned Sweetgreen. I just admired you guys. I was inspired by you guys at every level. And the reason Lunchbox started was because I'm like, how can we build what Sweetgreen has built? Like, that was the question. And we realized what you guys did was impossible. And the only way to do it is start from scratch and build a tech company. So that was the inspiration for our business. And I just wanted to share that with you and for anyone who has not heard that story yet.
No, thank you. And I just want to give you guys a shout out. I feel like I've been following you guys for the last few years, and just the evolution of the brand, what you guys stand for, the positivity in the industry. It's been really nice to watch, and just a lot of kudos to you and your team for building a great company.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. All right, so we're going to jump right into questions. No hot takes. There will be no hot takes. At some point, I may ask you about East Coast versus West Coast. You know, it's coming. Yeah. Besides that, I think it's all just smooth sailing from there. You grew up with such, diverse background. Not only were your parents first-generation immigrants, but they were also entrepreneurs themselves. How did that affect you at having a seat at the table, at building your own table? How was that like?
Yeah, so I'm half Mexican, half Chinese. Grew up in Southern California. Grew up in a very kind of entrepreneurial family. My dad was, he had an import-export business out of China, worked in LA. So I grew up really in his office, watching him and his sister and my uncle kind of start their own company. I think what it really left me with was just the permission to do something that was a little bit more untraditional. And so I met my two business partners at school in DC, and the one thing that we shared was that all of us were actually from immigrant entrepreneurial families. And so even though we went to a school where they kind of condition you to work on Wall Street or be a consultant, we kind of bonded over the fact that we could just try something that was a little bit more risky. But what we told ourselves was, the opportunity cost of doing something that risky when you're younger is a lot lower than when maybe you have a family, or maybe you have a high-paying job. And we were kind of already used to sleeping on couches and eating pizza, so we didn't realize that we had to take a big leap of faith at that point.
That's crazy, because now you just recently became a dad. You told me offline, right?
Yeah.
Full circle. What is one thing you wouldn't do anymore that you did in the early days? Like, you're like, no, I have a baby. I'm not doing that stuff anymore. And flip side of that, like, what are you better at now that you have a baby? You have to be more focused with your time, right? Like, would love to hear about that whole journey now, you becoming a dad, and now you have to give someone else permission and pave way for them, right?
Totally. Great question. Yeah, I feel like over the last year and a half, I've really learned the power of balance, and I feel like having a kid and having a family really just is so conducive to turning your brain off. And I feel like before, even the early days of building Sweetgreen, we worked really hard. And then it was hard to figure out how to context switch back to a normal life, because you're just really working, kind of living in the gray, working and living. And having the opportunity to have a family and a baby has been a really nice opportunity to kind of take a step back and actually have some balance. So I'm really grateful for that.
Tell us something you're like, I have a baby, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm glad I did that in my heydays, but that's not happening anymore.
Yeah, we were on the road all the time. I mean, the three of us pretty much living a very nomadic lifestyle, especially when we were living in DC and building our restaurants on the East Coast. We would live on the Amtrak back and forth. And so every few days we would go up to New York, we would go up to Boston, stop in Philly, stop in Baltimore. And I'm very happy that we did that when we did it. I feel like we always joke that a lot of our early board meetings and like founders meetings happened on that train, and having the time to do that. And I feel like now, I don't know if I'd travel as much as I used to, but grateful we got it in when we did.
That's incredible. And if I was a board member, I would be almost impressed. Like, let me not bother these guys too much. They're on the train. Like, any more grace because you guys were so busy?
It almost happened naturally. Like, the three of us actually still sit in the same office. Our partnership kind of lives in the moments in between meetings, you know, in between big moments. And I feel like that's what keeps us going, is a little bit more of the casual nature to it, knowing that we're always able to have like almost one, you know, board meetings are 4 times a year, but having one consistent conversation throughout the year is really powerful in terms of being in sync and having the rhythm of the business. And so, yeah, I feel like it's really just the casual nature of what we were able to do.
I have 2 co-founders as well, and they've wanted to murder me a couple of times and vice versa. And we've built a system now, like we'll try to definitely grab dinner once a week. Like that's our thing. Wednesday night, we complain, we fix it. We really come together and heal, and then we're good again for another week. And that is a new thing we added. Anything you guys have, any ritual you have on doing this together? Because it's so hard. People don't realize how hard it is. You spend so much time with your co-founder, more than your partner, right? So any rituals you have, any tips?
Yeah, rituals are really important. They've definitely evolved as we've gotten older. We used to spend all of our time together, and now because all of us have families and we've grown up a little bit, we really have to kind of make the time.
Yeah.
Kind of have like a sacred once a year we go on an offsite, just the three of us, and talk about business, we talk about life. And that's something that's we always do every year. And then we probably do like a monthly dinner and spend the time and try to kind of talk about work, but less in the context of day-to-day meetings and more in the context of the future. And that's been really helpful too.
I love that. Any cool places you guys have been to together?
Yeah, I mean, we've traveled a lot together. We just went to Joshua Tree.
That's awesome.
Have gone to, I mean, we've traveled internationally. We've gone to Tokyo together, which was a really fun trip. Again, going back to that living in the gray, it's like you kind of live your work life and your real life together, and you have to find the right way as a founder, and I'm sure you know it as an entrepreneur, to like integrate the two. And sometimes it's very challenging.
Yeah, less work-life balance, more work-life harmony, if you will. Yeah. Hey, so you guys have, I mean, you guys know this, like saying this is just like, you know, stating the most obvious thing in the world. You have the most incredible marketing, branding, storytelling, community ever, and you have some incredible campaigns. Your favorite, the one you're the most proud of, I'd love to hear from you. Is it, the Kendrick one is my personal favorite, you know, because I'm a huge fan, but tell me about yours.
Yeah, big Kendrick fan as well. Honestly, the whole Sweet Life Festival era that we did in DC was a very special time. I feel like it was beginning of Instagram, so it wasn't like social media didn't really exist yet. And it was important to us because it was a moment where I think we had 8 or 10 restaurants, and we really wanted to build a brand outside of just the restaurants. And it was really important to us to build a community and a lifestyle brand that could connect to a younger generation. So all of us are passionate about music. We must have seen so many live shows at the 930 Club in DC. And it really inspired us to kind of have a block party in our parking lot, in our second restaurant. And then from there, throw a food and music festival at Meriwether Post Pavilion for almost, I think it was 6 years, 2011 to 2016. And it was such a bet. You know, we kind of bet the farm on it. We had no experience in throwing a big event like that. We were booking talent, selling tickets, and our vision was to kind of replace all the concessions inside the festival grounds with local food, whether it was Luke's Lobster or Rappahannock Oyster Bar or Sweetgreen or a lot of our friends in DC, and make it a both experiencing great food and great music, because those things shouldn't be mutually exclusive. They can happen together.
Wait, you guys did not bring in professionals to run that event? You guys did it internally?
Well, we had a partner. We had a production partner at Meriwether who did all of the kind of music production piece, and we handled all the marketing, and we worked together to book talent.
That is nuts. That is incredible. I did not know that. Like, it seems like you guys are having fun and staying true to yourself. Today, looking back, everything you did is beautiful. It's a straight line, and these guys are geniuses. Back then, when you pitched it first time, I'm sure that it wasn't affordable. Was it hard to pitch things like that the early days, get the board or others around you to say, hey, this is not crazy, there's a vision here? Or did people always get it? Were you guys always like, all right, we were able to always convince everyone what this will look like 10, 15 years from now?
I would say it's a little bit of both. I mean, we opened our first restaurant in the middle of the recession, so we got so many no's. When we went to go raise money that first time, the amount of no's that we got was pretty crazy. And you just learn, the biggest lesson that we have as founders is you have to have a really thick skin. You have to have a really thick skin, and you got to have resilience, and you got to keep pushing. And I feel like that's just been the energy behind a lot of these things, where whether it was Sweet Life Festival or building new restaurants or raising money or building the brand, it's been like clarity of vision and a lot of resiliency just to push through and get it done, and making a ton of mistakes on the way there for sure. But as you know, at Lunchbox, I probably have a pretty clear vision of what you want to do. And a lot of times, in order to do what you want to do, you have to do things that are a bit uncomfortable or a bit, untraditional for what the norm is, in order for you to be original and have a uniqueness in the market. And so with things like Sweet Life, we just knew in our heart that if we could pull this off, it would really just create another narrative around the Sweetgreen brand. And eventually it would kind of drive awareness, and eventually it would drive sales. But it was one of those bets that we wanted to build a world that had nothing to do necessarily with the retail piece of it, but had to do with like the world that we wanted to build around the company.
That's incredible and inspiring, and I don't think people realize how much courage it takes to build what you've built. I think people talk about, because Sweetgreen has this incredible community, they can do a lot of different things, right? They can pull in X or Y and the community will respond back. But I think what is hard for people to realize is you guys have been giving back to the community for so long. It's easy when it's time to ask. So kudos to you guys for paving the way and doing things that is not so traditional and teaching the rest of us how to do it too.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Hey, so quick question. We talked a little bit about your favorite campaign from your company. Anyone else out there that inspires you? Any brand out there that you look at and you're like, I like what they're doing. They might be small, they might be big, but I enjoy what they're doing, and that's fun.
I like a lot of kind of these smaller companies that have a really powerful voice, I feel like, and are doing things that are unique in the space. I have a lot of respect for what the guys at Liquid Death are doing with a lot of their brand and marketing. Yeah. We have some friends that have a clothing company called Mad Happy. I like what Noah is doing in New York from a clothing brand, and nice. Honestly, just like one of my favorite brands of all time is In-N-Out, in terms of the simplicity of what they do and the food they serve, and just the commitment to quality.
I love that. That's awesome. I'm definitely going to go order more stuff from Noah, even though they're pricey. I gotta check them out. But I've not been to the store yet. I've heard great things. I love their online shop. The one release I have is Friday night shopping. That's my thing. That's my like one thing I need, which is like Friday night. Don't have a lot of energy left, online shopping. So added it to the Friday list. Hey, so now is the controversial stuff. Is Sweetgreen a West Coast company or an East Coast company? Seems like it's an East Coast company. I've been debating with our internal team. I've been saying, no, they built it on the East Coast, guys. But you tell me, you're an LA guy. You tell me.
So I grew up in LA.
Yes.
But I would say Sweetgreen was born on the East Coast, born in DC, and I would say a lot of our soul is East Coast. I think a lot of our operating identity is now West Coast. But here's what I would say is, I look back at those early years building this company, and so much of the blueprint of Sweetgreen came out of DC. It came out of going to the farmer's market, having Sunday suppers in the community, throwing Sweet Life, meeting neighbors, just understanding that community. And it really gave us so much in terms of how we introduce ourselves to the community, how we built the brand. And so we actually took a lot of that blueprint from DC up the East Coast and on the West Coast, and now honestly in more of the middle of the country. And so we owe a lot to that community, really like 2007 to call it 2016 of us kind of incubating the brand there.
That's amazing. You guys are opening places everywhere. Any opening that led you to go to a place for the first time and you're like, oh wow, this is great. I'm here because of the opening. I haven't been here before, but this is a delight. This place is a delight.
Yeah, there's a lot of places. Sweetgreen has given me the passport to visit so many cities in the US. We just opened a few restaurants in Indianapolis, Minneapolis, which has been really fun to visit. We opened our first automated restaurant in Naperville outside of Chicago, which has been fun. And we just opened a few stores in Milwaukee. So yeah, it's been a great passport to visit new cities.
I love it. All right, we're gonna do it East Coast versus West Coast. I have 6 questions for you. You pick a side. You know, you can't sit pass, all right? Because these are very controversial questions. The first one is the hardest one. East Coast versus West Coast. Hip hop. Who has better hip hop? Oh man.
I would say, man, this one's tough. I would say West Coast hip hop.
Okay, who do you love out there?
I'm like, one of my early first CDs was Chronic 2001. So
oh wow,
I
nice.
would say like all of Dre, all of Snoop. I mean, that even like some of the early Tupac stuff like that.
Love it.
I grew up with.
Love it. All right, I'm on the East. You know, I have to pick Queens as a hip hop mecca, and so you know I'm picking the East Coast. Okay, I'll give you a layup. Okay, I'll give you an easy one. Who has the better NBA team?
I mean, it's so hard to say that. I feel like
this one's easy. I feel like we all agree who has the better.
I mean, I feel like the Lakers have always been really great. Kobe in his heyday, yeah.
So one of my heroes is Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a tattoo here that says Brown Mamba, because he was the Black Mamba and I'm brown. So no controversy there. All right, who has better weather?
You know what? I like East Coast weather.
All right, 2 for 1.
I like the seasons.
2 for 1. All right, 2 for 1. All right, who has better people?
Oh,
this is tough. This is the only one you can pass on. This is the only one you can pass on.
I'm gonna pass on that one.
Okay, that one you can pass. All right, who has better fashion?
East Coast.
East Coast. Okay. Last one. Who has better food?
I would say East Coast as well.
What do you like out there?
I don't know. It's a lot of these local spots. Again, I kind of think about East Coast, and I think more about DC and some of the cities that we started in. I mean, New York is obviously some of like the best restaurants in the world, but for me, I like some of these smaller hole-in-the-wall places. And even on the West Coast, like growing up close to San Gabriel Valley, so many great Chinese restaurants out here.
Yeah.
And Asian flavors. So that's really a tough one too.
All right, we're done. All right, how was that? How do you feel?
No, I feel great.
All right.
I feel great.
I feel like you were honest. I gotta say, as a LA man, I feel like you gave us more credit than we deserve, and we'll take it. We'll take it on here on the East Coast.
There's a piece of my heart that's still on the East Coast, so.
I love that. Okay, so quick question. All right, so within the last few years, Sweetgreen was deemed one of the Fast Company's most innovative companies of the year. Like, how do you feel like your passion for storytelling and brand expertise, shape your career and by default the company itself? Like, how much of that, like, hey, this is a very innovative company, this is a incredible company, is your job, the storytelling part of it all?
Well, it's been such an evolution, right? I feel like so much of what we built in the beginning has been the foundation to what we're doing now. But the things that we did back then, we just can't do now because we're bigger and the world has changed too. I think what's important is because we've been a founder-led company for a while, it always starts with our mission and values. Everything, every branding decision, every campaign you see is always rooted in some type of core value at Sweetgreen. And that becomes really the framework for how we build the company. And we have a term internally called, we want to create intimacy at scale. So how do you feel like that local place as you continue to get bigger? And it's very difficult and we haven't fully figured it out, but kind of going back to, it always comes back to the mission and values. And I don't know, I have one part of that. We have over 6,000 employees today. And so every employee has to represent the brand, and our job as founders and as a leadership team is how do you create the right rituals and the ongoing conversation and transparency to get those 6,000 people to also act as great marketers and storytellers for the company. And that's kind of the magic trick of the whole thing.
You have more marketers than that. Every office in New York I will ever go to has a Sweetgreen on the table, and and those people are as invested in you guys as your team members, and it's amazing to watch the community you've built. I don't know how you guys have done this, but every Sweetgreen is the local salad joint, and it has the commitment from the community in a way that I've never seen before, right? So I can tell it is working, right? As hard as that maybe it is working, and you guys have more marketers than
Yeah, I think a brand is as powerful as the community around it. And our number one marketing channel by far is word of mouth, right? It's not the cool Naomi Osaka campaign. It's not the billboards you see. It's not the digital advertising we do. It's not the app. It's really, think about how you probably found out about Sweetgreen. Somebody probably told you about it. And that is the power of how you build organic community, is just through the power of word of mouth. And so we try as a company not to spend too much resources or even dollars on a ton of advertising, but ways to just to build community one person at a time. And a lot of times, even when we open these new markets, it's finding the 100 right people, whether they're a high school quarterback or the fitness person or the mommy blogger or whatever it is, to kind of just become everybody's best friend. And that's always been our approach, is how do you be a student of the community? How do you make sure Sweetgreen feels like that local place? And if you can pull that off, then it has a domino effect.
I love that. I mean, as a former operator, I think the first group of restaurants I was thinking about when the pandemic happened was, the New York City lunch spots, right? And I was thinking about Sweetgreen a lot. I was like, oh my God, the pandemic is here. I wonder what's happening with Sweetgreen because they are such a lunch spot, right? I go there for lunch almost all the time. You guys are on the other side, and I think you guys have done a masterful job navigating that. Can you take us through those early days? What was going through, especially your mind? Like, what was happening? It must have been stressful.
Yeah, I feel like us with with everyone, there was so many unknowns when the pandemic hit, and where our brain first went was, how do we make sure we take care of our people? How do we make sure that we take care of our people, they're safe, and figure out the best way to take care of the inside of the company first. And then, COVID was really challenging for us, especially because so much of our geography at the time was urban, lunch, corporate traffic. But I do feel like anything, back to the idea of having really thick skin, being able to survive, and learning the lesson of resilience early, you just have to push through. And you have to have a mindset where you're going to get through it and do it in a way, again, back to the values and mission. As long as you do make these decisions for the company that are in line with that, even a mistake doesn't feel like a mistake because you know you made the right decision. And so I think in those times when it's uncomfortable or it's unknown, or lunch traffic has disappeared in New York for a bit, you have to figure out a way to understand what you can control and what you can't control. And for us, it was really our digital ordering, a lot of the work that we had done with delivery, and a lot of the secondary make lines that we had the ability to kind of really turn on during those moments. And as long as we could take care of our people, focus on our digital business, and kind of just continue to push through on the brand, we just knew that if we could get to the other side of it, we'd be in a much better company.
Wow, that's amazing. And I remember when you guys launched your dinner menu.
Yeah.
And it was only available on the app. Am I making this up?
Yeah.
I
started on the app.
On the app only, and I'm like, this is what all of us should do. First of all, I saw a couple of things from my point of view. I was like, look, they're making an ask finally to their community, and their community will respond because they've given time and time and again. That's one. Second, this is exclusive, and they're continuing to build their own, digital, storefront, and that is awesome. So, I'm just a student of Sweetgreen, and I'm such a fan of everything you guys are doing, and I'm so happy I got to talk to you. As a former CMO, I've been watching your stuff, and to chat with you is also a bit surreal. So thank you so much for making some time.
Nabil, thank you for having me, and again, congrats on everything with Lunchbox. It's very cool to see.
Yeah, excuse me. I need the real ones to fly with me. Tube socks, boy, about to pop the